May sentient beings attain the state of all seeing, subdue the four faults, and be delivered from the ocean of cyclic existence perturbed by the waves of aging, sickness, and death. This ground anointed with perfume, flowers strewn Mount Meru, for land, sun, and moon, imagined as a Buddha land and offered to you. May all beings enjoy this pure land. Venerable holy gurus, in the space of your truth body, from billowing clouds of your wisdom and love, let fall the rain of the profound and extensive Dharma, in whatever form is suitable for subduing sentient beings. Idam Guru Ragna Mandalakam Niryatayami. I take refuge until I have awakened in the Buddhas, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By the merit I create by listening to the Dharma, I will attain Buddhahood in order to benefit all sentient beings. I take refuge until I am awakened in the Buddhas, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By the merit I create by listening to the Dharma, I will attain Buddhahood in order to benefit all sentient beings. I take refuge until I have awakened in the Buddhas, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By the merit I create by listening to the Dharma, I will attain Buddhahood in order to benefit all sentient beings.
나 딕성겐나.
야야. 뭐야, 다들 제종가 바신베 송래. 와. 대회된데 신 노래라. 니더니 바타리 삼신스. 니가 지글라 남게 로단다 치디사 삼신 지된 자와고. 뱀바 차와신도 또주네. 예전군도 님불렘 바고스. 내주르게 자 냠레 때다르제. 다다르제 탄도 케자 티신 장철로스. 어셰송바다로. 나라도 토베 대화계단 조르바 주상에 밀리데 돈다 추주발라 델시 튕긴 상마탐제 좀베 댄조기 밀리 에네 상계기 땜바던 제베 밀리 개버리션 디타부 토반데서 거라 디페 주데 신도네 니가와서다 니가와레세 다른 렌지 좀 니바르 마도 딱바르시데 니마레서 거라 비 니바데 대회된데 신 놀래라스 이신기 노르부데 딜레 소아담나 에네코 카르소다 첸디 세고 네멜 소바 간데지나 상마 줍투기와라 몰람 상마 줍투기와라 다교 치마 배제 돈다 주베데 그거 말도 다텐데 이신기 노부 붐자 만부여나 딜레자 학바데 생각하지 대주 밀루토바데 와 대주데네 니바시 말에 대대신 놀라 이신기 노블에 학바데스 대대신 놀라 대대니에 되니 다리 삼심마도 두타바니 말을 가르스니 티 유튜브에 신도 유튜브에 가와레스 띵가라주 개와다 메그에 삼로 남주 숙치주제네 메그와데 숙치그리마도 개와데 숙충주에 되어라 어디가 하고 도우라 대단히 바다리 삼시 근데 어디질라네야
So here, as Je Lama Tsongkhapa has said, this support, this life of leisure that we have is superior to a wish-fulfilling jewel. It's difficult to find, and it's found just this once. So here, recognizing the value of that, we should cast aside all worldly activities, like winnowing chaff from the grain, and instead take the essence of this life, use it for something meaningful. He says, I, a yogi, have practiced in this way. You who seek liberation should do likewise. So here we have this kind of life that has all of the freedoms to be able to practice the Dharma. And not only that, it has all of the kind of endowments, the opportunities. We have met with the Buddha's teachings, and we can use this life for a great kind of purpose. But this is something that is found just this once. It isn't as though we always have such a life with all of these kinds of conditions. And so this life is likened to a wish-fulfilling jewel. If we use it, we can really accomplish anything we wish, even beyond this life, most importantly, beyond this life. In the same way that a wish-fulfilling jewel can grant us whatever it is that we might want for this life, the kind of life that we have with all of the freedoms and endowments is able to grant us anything that we might wish in terms of our future life, whereas a wish-fulfilling jewel can't do that. And this is something that is difficult to obtain, because when we think about the sort of causes that are necessary for getting such a rebirth, it's very much virtuous actions. And when we look at our kind of natural tendency, the virtue that we do is much less than the kind of non-virtue. We are much more habituated to non-virtue. So gaining the sort of causes that lead to such a rebirth is something quite rare.
Oh yeah. Dendra nyeba tare. Nye kaas tate. Tsa chenpo yena ya ko rwa. Dende shin dendra nye tare se. Nye ka. Jigla wa res. Tate nye ka wa de nyeba yena yun rinpu che tempu tegi yena ya ko. Yun rinpu lega che samlatang yo ra. O dendra ma res ra. Jigla la wa res. Ko kadu jigma ji tende ke yo marwa. Luburu tu. Jigsi burwa ko chiwa se atila. Nyeba ke yo marwa. O dendra. Jigla la wa res. Dendra tanda tanda. Tanda tukure se tanda rwa. Nyegan jigla. Namge lo tanda se. Pena mangchewa tuju. Chayla na gung se te. Samsala lo juwa di. Kichi chigsam jugure. Tene ko ngangin jigdugure ma to. Tele jigju shenda ke ko marto. Lubur tu ko jigdugura. Nyegan jigla namge lo tanda se. Tsundi samshe se. O susu tobe milu tsa chimpo te. Nye kawa che tomne tare. Tene te. Yokwan jigla wa sonza ta sabso che ne. Tene. Tanda tukure se go ra. Nyegan jigla namge lo tanda. Tsundi samshe jigden chawa kwen. Tsundi samlo tanda. Mese te shira yu rumbu shira ke mare roha. Te tenden ke yo mare se. O te tanda chikbul ya. Se ku nemele sokwa. Mese te tsoya tanda te chikbul ya. Goko tena. Ni mandiri songo ra. Namge lo tsundi samshe jigden chawa kwen bimba chawa shine. Jigden chen deji chikbul tanda te. Bimba chawa na shire se. Dhurav tinte pakpa tinte ya chaate na, ko chaate lungli ya dus chaare na, pakpa jimne ki dhur ma to laya ke go marwa, tanda yoba te pa ki dhur ma to laya ke go marwa. Tan dhurav chi yoba che ti pa karsa, ani ya lungli chaare na pakpa te pa pi dhute laya gira ko, saya nyingbu te te gira go liya. O tinte jikden di chikbu laya ka ti jikden koran tundal tsoa dhuma to, tila lakwa chi ki dhruya chi ke go marwa si go ra. Sende samse jikdan chawa bimba chawa shindu to ju ne. Tanda dele sende kari ne te so du ma do chima pa kiye ke yo marwa. Len du ke yo ma nyingbu ke yo mar sigora. Bimba chawa shindu to ju ne. Nyingzen kundu nyingbu lemba kuyo se. Kati yena ya sende chibu mayimba sende chibu susu lu choya yo tendu mechi du cho chu na pe pangbu re songo wara. Ti tendu da keba ma chung re sigora. Ta chu na shi che na. Tandu suwa Kurang su che che se, tung pa che che, teni che buku suya da kanga che, ni mezi tso chu ura, kale kyab che. Ti ma do kemba su ra, nga zu tandu na shi ma ra. Mikse ki samlu tang tungge, yurungbu samlu tang tungge, lab chenpe kewa saya yore, tikpa pangya yore, pe samlu mambu tanga yore mi liya, shirab chigi ra. O te tabi ta kukab sangbu te, Any don't do that, she just send this with Tondalia, so you there, any the Bayata you saw. Any Dosana pay Pambu some good. Dumba Shawash in the Totune. In Zangundo, Nimbulemba, Nidan San Tamjedo, send the Chibuton down my Iba, Kawachima Pengela Penge, said de la Rante, Shandewa, Deve Chundunge. Dina Mijin Debudele Kawachima, Nikawa young boy liar, then Drake liar. And it the one you know what is really bad with this one. Yeah, teach you.
So this life is difficult to find and is something that is really precious. But as it is something as well that is found just this once. And I apologize as the translator, I forgot this line that says, this is something that is fleeting, like a flash of lightning. It is easily destroyed. We have this life, but it doesn't remain. It's not as though we can count on it to be here forever, but is something that will be quickly destroyed, quickly perish in the way that a flash of lightning comes, it illuminates everything, and then it's gone. And it's not as though it needs some kind of external cause for its perishing. That's part of its nature. It immediately is destroyed of its own accord. And so this precious life that we have that is so difficult to find, we have no ability to hold on to it. It is going to be destroyed. We are going to have to move on. And so thinking like that, we should recognize that there's no sort of certainty. We can't say, oh, I'll always have this life, or this is a life that I get all the time. But yet, when we recognize that this is difficult to find, is extremely rare and precious, and also that it is quickly lost, then we give up. We naturally turn away from the affairs of just this life. Like in the way that when you are winnowing the chaff from a grain, it's like you sort of toss it up into the air, and the skin of that grain is carried off on the wind. It's something that's not really very substantial. The grain itself then falls back into whatever you're using, and you have this kind of grain. There's something that you can take with you. The affairs of this life are sort of like the chaff of that grain, in that they are carried off. They aren't something that we can take with us. We can't carry with us into our future life anything substantial from those sorts of activities, whereas the essence is like the grain. And so we should be such that, having reflected on our life in this way, we want to take the essence. We want to sort of act in a way day and night that is really thinking about our future happiness, and creating the causes for that. Really, we are superior to an animal. I mean, animals are able to sustain themselves. They eat, they sleep, they produce children, and so forth. But we have a special kind of intelligence and intellect. We have the ability to do virtue and to abandon non-virtue, and give ourselves the causes for happiness in this and future lives. And so it would be just a huge loss to only spend our time in the affairs of this life day and night. We should think beyond that. We should try to take advantage, take the essence, make meaningful this life that we have right now, to do something beneficial for our future.
Oh, yeah. Tanya Zankundo, Nimbu Lembakus, Nimbu Lea de Langarazo, Nimbu Ramji Tasum Lea Yorwa, Kibu Chungus, Kiwachima, Sadami, Kiwa Sambuche Lea de Nimbu Chibra. Oh, Nyawayita Tandula Sobali Kemegoba. Sadami, Churtubete, Kebarshachi. Tanda Sendele Churtuba Nashi Maumbala, Churti Kone Kondia Peag, Lutin, Ladami, Kiwa Kebarshachi Tobiak Chedo, Nishala Tawapang. 진이지 뱀바투에 되라. 샹라 차와제나 룡아 예수님 거네 샹라 차와제나 네 녀와에다 던들어 서봐 진짜 기여라. 샹리아 진이 차와빵 뱀바투나 소 껴발라 서봐 뱀바투. 나 단단한 줄디 값소 가서라. 렌제 정해 값소 송바이나 아니 뭐도 추 주주스 미게와 주빵 개와 주주 대전달이야 단다 주태베 좀 주주스도 Monday you church do said, what does it look good? This word. Dilome, and it's Sendela, Shala saw me, Chiniji Pemba to take your order. Deletan and Kawachama me come to 2 days. Ti Nimbu, Tambutere, Tambesu Nimbulayat. Oh, Nibutelia, Tenjuku Milu Bash and the Mambulani, Titan Latinic Alec Tombani Comia, Condronga, Trato, Alasoba, Numumba. Yumokamba ngao nyambe nganzi shukchimbote. Ene ngai sayaro chakba shukchimbote. 아니 나의 대소라 내가 생겨다 미팅 받아서 공도 사야다. 너와 공도다 나게다 차돌서 봐. 대소 간가 많이 오르단 빵네. 아니 대왕게 레마사 버쳐라. 녀목게 왕게 레사소나. 레게 와사보이네 하다 미도 tin데 끼거라. 뒤이나야 고 가서라. 고에 껴래 되어라. 근데 하다 저기 기부 총무게 닝부대 녀손래 마게버세 녀와이다 전도래 껴왕에 뭐 마게버세 하다 밀게네 되어라. 그 기분 딩되게 하다 밀겨 방아절란데 타바 좀 마도 하다 미 껴와대야 되네 대외 존에게 말해서 대양아죠. 무슨도 쪽으로 개회 동에 개배 동에 나회 동에 시회 동에 더바제데 매니바 맨도바 토도 바바타 밀에 깨가나 실에서 봐 동에 마부 요라 딩가서 하고도 제자고 녀손라 되데 대화래 동에 강에 실에 타로래 돼 동에를 땐도 타로 말와 근데 동에를 땐도 타고나 동에 가서 교대 내가 녀몬보왕게 라와 매벌 하다 밀에 깨야 돼야 매버 쏘고요라 내가 녀몬보왕게 하다 밀에 깨야 동에 마부 용고도 와 어디 인도 따디 교대 방샤나 네 내가 녀몬보왕게 하다 밀에 깨가 말와 교반도 되네 가서 다음에 동반이 메다와 참물라 쏘와 아니 공동하게 차돈 대선을 쏘와 대소해 봐 방에 탑시셔라 기분 딩기 분이 버티더라 어디실랑이야
So, here, where this verse says that we should take the essence of this life day and night, there are different sort of levels of that, of making meaningful this life that we have, lesser, middling, and great. And at the very least, to use this life that we have right now in order to secure a good rebirth, a life like we have now, where we are able to continue to practice the Dharma. For that purpose, to then abandon harming others with your body, speech, and mind, and try to benefit them as much as you are able to, then we are creating the kind of causes to ensure we have such a rebirth in the future. By harming others, by creating hurt for them, we create the causes for suffering for ourselves, for rebirth in the lower realms. And so to be able to gain rebirth as a human or a god, we need to then engage in positive actions, things like protecting life, as it is taught here within the precious Garland. Nagarjuna speaks about the 16 sort of causes for a good rebirth, for that kind of higher state of existence. And so in addition to things like protecting life, there are others that he adds, but those 10 opposite of the 10 non-virtues, things like protecting life, benefiting others as much as we can, then is able to ensure we get such a rebirth in the future. That's how we take the essence of this life. But here, when one thinks beyond that, even if you are to gain a rebirth as a human or a god, other than seeing that as something training in stages to get to the final kind of goal of a liberation from samsara, a being that is beyond that, taking the essence on a middle level, means meditating on emptiness, means looking at the faults of the afflictions like anger and attachment and this grasping at an I and so forth. And all of this thought that grasps I, that then has attachment to me and mine, and a kind of aversion toward the other, an animosity toward those that we see as our enemies, this is then seen to be the cause that leads to renewed rebirth within samsara. So reducing all of our afflictions in order to ultimately get rid of the causes, get rid of the karma that is created through those. I mean, in the essence of taking the essence of our life in a small scope capacity is really thinking about getting a rebirth as a human or a god. But someone at a middling level sees that even if you are born as a human or a god, you still suffer the sufferings of birth, aging, sickness, and death, the sufferings of encountering unwanted things and not getting what you want, and so forth. There are all sorts of different ways that one suffers. And so really, even a birth as a human or a god is uncontrolled in the sense that it is under the control of karma and the afflictions. And so getting rid of those entirely by meditating on the selflessness of the person, by eliminating ignorance and our anger and attachment and so forth, this is the way in which a person of middling scope takes the essence of this life.
Oh yeah. Oh, they do go so that. The Jeliani give Chimbusura, give Chimbus some locodes, the legenda, to what Chimbus some little. Then the Shalia, Sawapamba said, Seba Kunalani Sobanguara, Shall Sochen, Shall Tunga Yungresam, Shall Tubuchon and Digmaresam, Social Sochen, Social Tunga Yungura, or dinner she put the Sochen and Tunga Yungresam, Shall Sobanguara, or in the Tunga attended with Sochunjuji or Sobandis of Yogura. And it Pendo Chase is a project that the other tended some Bekunelani, Chambe, Chambe some Bekunelani, Chambe Chunjuji or I call it. Robache Yakuchigina Kola, Dewa Yunguri, Kibu Yunguri, Abu Yunguri, some Giora, Telechamba Sigua, Dewa that Tendi Lotele Chambas, Tungeda Tendi Lotele Zawasigua, or de Kushisoni, Swapang Pemba Trubaniti Ungara, or the Dukas order. Or Tinde Samlute, Tungele Te, Samlute, Kacheru Cherchin, Simje Tamje, Tungeda Tower, Tugure, some Lukuga, Kacheru. Tambu sosu nangmine che samlu tangkudwa. O shenle tsawa che sidi maarav kyo shenda chibu sigo ma tambu ngozu sidi sosu nangmine ngozu kudwa. Kondo danga je dang chato dang densinde che di mandi chun namsa kondo se mikiba so na tsawa re dewa ra. Sosu nangmine ngozu sungkudwa chamba da tsawa se de. Dine pa jiso le nyamdo dedu rokba tezo la ngozu. Dine pa kya cheru cheru che ngangi simje yinba tsam tsangmali ya tsawa pa na Sawajan and Digmaresa, Pemba took to the Pemba took with some Simja Tamja, some of the Yongura. Or the Yongo, this some of the Gasher Churchene, Sosunia data, Tetsuchiba Maimba, Swa Titu Yongang, Simja Tamjalia, Tungeda Tewa Chiku Samsa. Dewa Tamja, the Tatu with the water Demba Chakus, Simja Tamjegi, Tunga says Tewalia, Gutum Gengi, Kansa Kunsa, Yunde Kundengi, Kansa Juro Chaku, something. 대체도 취해야 되려 기부 침배 취해서도 다티 상계적 고반 톱제게 심지어 탐제게 더 줄부터 말라 내가 토과면게 교육고서 연대 군대 방도지데 탈신배 가사신 주라시기 삼네 대체도네 침바 주된 세발에 소부터 줄로버들 기부 침배 된다로 어떤데 삼로 좀 지켜고도 야
So then a person of great scope has this kind of Mahayana attitude. The attitude of a person of great scope is one that out of love for others refrains from harming them and wishes to benefit them. It's not a self-interest as well as much as it is recognizing that when you harm others, you are creating suffering for them. And because they are feeling beings, you don't want to create that suffering for others in the same way that you don't want to suffer. And so this is connected with that kind of attitude of compassion. When we view others with love, with this sense that we don't want them to feel suffering because they are feeling beings just like us, that is connected with our kind of compassion. And then our wish that they have happiness is that sense of love. When we look at others and think, may they have happiness, may they have the causes of happiness, this is an attitude of love. And if we have that kind of basis wherein we see that others are feeling beings and we want to refrain from harming them and bring about their happiness, then this is the basis upon which we are able to increase and expand that attitude so that everyone we see, including all sentient beings, we have that same sense towards. But we need to start with our own family. We need to start by seeing the kind of harm that comes from our anger, our attachment, our maliciousness, and so forth, and reduce those and act love and compassion with those with whom we interact, our family, our friends, those in society that we are interacting with on a regular basis. And then we are able to really expand out that kind of attitude. So we get to the point where it's not just those with whom we are familiar, that we have love for, that we feel affection for, but we really are able to have this attitude encompass all sentient beings, all who have feelings, all who we wish that they have happiness and be free from suffering. And in order to be able to do that, we look to how do I become a Buddha? How do I become a being who has eliminated all faults and developed all good qualities such that they are able to, in an unobstructed, unhindered way, work effortlessly for the benefit of all sentient beings? And so in this kind of vein, we are thinking that whatever sort of dharma we are doing, whatever kind of practice we are doing, is for the sake of being able to gain that ability of Buddhahood, such that we are able then to be of greatest benefit to all sentient beings without exception.
Oh yeah, more to do so. 이제 군도 님불렘 받고 세 되서 어디 인도 다도 당하라 주던데 밀루 톱 대바티 배 자천부지 톱이 봐 국가 야부치 녀여다 던돌에 소바 텐들이 여령부 땡게시 나라주 미장제제 대시와 말도 녀마 가르거데 망샤 티버서디고 기와 냠바들랑게 와라 덴데 기와라라 다를 렌지데 배 기와 상부 덴데지 톱샤섬 티베 자천부시부지 섬 다가서 돈다 천디 찍부 돈다리아 대한 득버사기 사기지 대샤나다 배 방부시부지를 삼제 방심 깨고를 셔라 니에바데 된주 밀리 짜침부터 레지 니에바데 돈도 심제 현달 따다 삼루탄 아보 된데 배강에래 다른 밀리 된데지 톱 최제 고급 톱 배야보데 삼제 가와 공고를 했은 거라 나라 줄들이야 밀리 짜침부터 톱을야 가에 그게 가고 말해서 방심제 밀리도 다시 돌아다나 방심계요 말았어. 딜레 잘라답지 라소나. 고모 잔입제지 라소나. 아카카 제 방심지 그래서래. 요. 고모 잔입제래야 잘라르지 라소나. 아 답배야부 좀 되는데 빼야부 좀상 가고 그래서 근데 지지요 말해서 그래. 소수 밀리들이야. 어때 빼빼 노래래서 빼게 전부지 삼루당 그래서 거라. 먼저 준준하려 연구해 봐. 근데 대화니 있죠네. 된저 밀로 통해 세거라. 근데 대화니 있죠네. 다 개금 맞잖아. 개발라 꼼 티버 판데 럽체베. 돈들을 하고 저기 내가 좀 맞잖아 세거라. 근데 대화니 있죠네. 그거서래. 근데 대화니 있죠네. 다게 개금 맞잖아. 개발라 꼼 맞잖아. 딜레 르바 셴메든 딜레 몽바 셴메도 소소소소 르거래. 국가 국수대다 국가 나네 쪽도 주고 국가 되려신 딜레 몽베 몽섭치와 생야 매세 어디인데 최제스도 가셔야 대상구도 지마지 용야지마도 챈델 팬도 매베서 된데 삼고다 충엄마데 팬도데 챈델이 와라 콘도메 나제메 차도메 샹라 팬바투 세와체나 소소에 끼버요 와라 챈델 소소 끼버래 당부들이야 담배 전에 토마르게와 바르도게와 타마게와 시가 그도 이나고 야부레더라 자 소소 취제 대친들 제고도 친들 소소라 배기 와라 소소냠도 이게 지소라 배기 와라 대시 끼바다 삼루통에 이나고 소통게다 tinday fengora. Tinday chebala tene chu de chendelia sawapa pemba tu sambu chebala tene tin drebu nami de kyachima lada milikia da te da sumbene te ayongre sungudwa. O te inde ti keshambure devara. Ma ti chisona.
So, here, as this verse says, we should day and night take the essence of this life. Really, we need to regard the life that we have obtained right now as something that is so precious, that we are so fortunate to have in our hands right now. I mean, most of the time, we are in those kinds of non-negative states of rebirth, and most of our non-virtues come in those kind of states. But also in our life as a human, if we allow ourselves to let this go to waste, sort of just doing whatever, following after our afflictions and doing non-virtues for the sake of this life, we should really have a sense of loss at that we are using something so precious and valuable and just squandering it away. To have such an opportunity is something that we should feel great joy at. We should feel a real sense of how great an opportunity we have in our hands. And normally we don't really regard the life that we have in this way. Like, we don't think much if we allow ourselves to waste some time on something that is meaningless. We don't really feel a sense of loss. But if we have something that costs $100, $200 and we lose that, we all of a sudden feel like, oh, I lost this thing. Like, how could that happen? And we get so upset. And so too, when we get something that's like $100, $200, it's like, oh, look at this precious thing I have, and we try to take care of it. But our life, this thing that is even more precious than any of that, is something that we don't really regard in this way, and that's something that is wrong. So as the Master Shantideva has said, at this time where we have this life of freedom, if we don't habituate ourselves to virtue, if we don't really use this opportunity to do something where we increase our positive qualities and habituate ourselves to virtue, there's no greater deception than that. There's nothing that is stupider than that. And this is really, we should think about this, that Dharma is something, often we have this misperception that like, oh, well, the good result of Dharma comes in the future. Like often people think that it is something where we are waiting for some sort of future result. But really, the Dharma brings virtue, brings happiness in the beginning, the middle, and the end. If we are doing this correctly, getting rid of our afflictions like anger and jealousy and so forth makes us happier right here and now. We benefit ourselves, we benefit those around us, we benefit society that we are interacting with. And even though the kind of ripening result of our positive actions will ripen in the future and bringing about a good life and so forth, we experience a kind of benefit that is in the here and now as well.
Oh yeah, 진도 가서래. 스페는 소초바르지네 티 독초데 소초바시기도. 마진 발렘바스 티 독초데레 소소 미잘라데 꾸주샤네 소소파 진바단 펜도 제톰네 제고레 송구도 진바데 셰기도. 소초바지 펜도 진바단한테 땅부데 셰기도. 진바세데레 가조티 진바단 추tum 서버 송부데 빼게 전부데 되와라. 가조 땅부데라. Chimba tenal tanda mambo yordo. Sansengi chimba se penjo roba chebale yungora. Si sanse cheji chimba se shen labja jaya de ya. Ro labja jaya de le. Che gu chone labja kyabne mi chizo ndo tanda chizo kanga shena te chimba re de ora. When kigen de chi labgi ne te chimba re de ora. Kigen de labye de. Jigden kam kande kande lega che ora samlo kare tangura kare che ora labgi ora chingi ora ko. 어쨌든 최지 심바세 랍자게도 최지 심바세 거라 아니 가서래 아니 미직배 심바세 강에 여바 메드비치 베데 강에 드치요나 딜레 로바체베데 미직배 심 직바 메바시 거라 베나 미르지 나제 라가토바 리데 요나 코 로바체 야자체네 콜리 직바 요라 딜레 타로치 거라 미직배 심바라 분드비치나 냐드비치나 콜 강에 요나 पाचने तेले कांगे देसे चुथाले ने चुनल फालु वइना को म्यूजिक बेचिम बरवा जेता को चिबा सेदे यजी मेजे नोर चला रे क्यांग्या को मारे सोसो नोर चला ताया मेना मिशेंदा को तोंबु चे तो के लाबदल रोवा चिगो रे गासा काल मिचोबुल रोवा चिगने पे याबोरे आ सम चेसु येना चने ते चिबन दो वाला शेंजी केवा चिबला सोवा कारि चने तेले चेसु येना चने ते चिबे जान दो वाला ओ ते इंदो कासोरे Chimba tanya teke sanje ke sondu che sondu tangbu chimba de ke shimbu chen songudwa. Ti karesina mao bala yani sosol ya kange meyon ya ke ti songu wada. Longzhe ki pong so na chendele chimba mata na longzhe ki kyawa chimba kyoba kesu na ni kange wada. Ni chochi da samlo tanga togu ma re. Tangbu ale soso chowa kora kange mati tegura. Ti yabu tenjin zom so na ni shine cho samlo tanga chi yongura. O ti indi chimba de tangbu ke she songu wada. Chimba ti drebu ti kera tinde chimba sumbu te dal bene ti drebu ti mao bala min ko yo na ta chutim yabu sungu re se shen la chawa bamba chutim sungu re se chutim ma suna kera kewa sambo la tu ma re ni kera chimba ta tanda mil roba cheba ti drebu ti nyendu la soba tinde le mingi ma do luden kebar chen ko le min tu ma re teni chigne chi do chimba ta ne chima kewa chima yaru de yong ma re sungu ra chutim sungu re se de kyawa sangbo che le chimba tawen drebu te kyawa sangbo mi ta lai liu le mi he ta da le chudim songu de songu ra tini yakbo chi yang ko ina tini yakbo chi lam lo do ko ina soba kom ko re se te sum de songu do ya ti ji lo no.
So here, when we think about virtue, like for example, the opposite of killing is protecting life, and the opposite of stealing in general is to be generous, is to give materially, to be generous with one's possessions and so forth. And so we can see there's a degree of practicing the various virtuous actions really fall into the practice of generosity, ethics, and patience. Or really, the Buddha has emphasized the importance of these three in particular at the beginning. And generosity doesn't necessarily need to be material generosity. Even if we don't have the materials to give to others, we can be generous in the sense of giving advice to others. Giving of the Dharma is another type of generosity. Giving them advice that is helpful, whether it is worldly or sort of advice that is related to Dharma, how to do something. This is all generosity, in that a teacher who gives new knowledge and skills to someone is engaging in generosity. And giving can also be giving protection from fear. Like if someone is about to fall over a cliff and you're able to lend them a hand and pull them back up, that is generosity as well. And so too, if you're like protecting a bug or protecting a fish, putting it back in the water, all of those are types of generosity. And so we don't necessarily have to have material kinds of means in order to be generous. And we can also rejoice in the virtues of others. If we ourselves are not able to be generous, we can rejoice in the generosity of others. And so in teaching generosity at the beginning, it's important as a practice, because if we are born into a situation where we are in extreme poverty, that makes it quite difficult to be able to practice the Dharma. And so in order to avert that, in order to have the kinds of conditions that we need for continued practice, generosity is emphasized at the beginning. But without ethical conduct, we can't ensure that we can sort of enjoy that the results of that generosity. If we are to be born into the three lower realms, even if we have been generous, that's not going to be a good situation. So to ripen that generosity on a good rebirth, we have to hold to ethical conduct in order that we are able to ensure those. So to have those be beneficial, really, and not have our virtues destroyed by anger, these three practices of generosity, ethics, and patience are extremely important.
Oh, yeah. Oh, did this once. Just a chimbashi at the little Amjita to Zopena, Legacy so chingiora. She do some good met on the so chingiora. Tinesh so Butanda made in the Sobutanda to chingiora, to the Ganga Chimbeta and Doyora. No teacher. Catelia Chimbata, Chutim so any booty picking with a song, Joachim had me go on to Valia. Shall it so upon a matter, young Mara, take you so there is one. Take on Tanda Chimbaton at the Joachim so whatever you had the long you had a Pomba Mabati you had the young toa. That in the young Chebalea, send the carriage over us and a server congregation. Chimba Chutim Serbashi, Padu Chimba two shady Chimba Chutim Serbashi door. The Serbashi the Carissana. That the young Sawa maybe chewed the young Jebala Sigura. Can I go at Chimala the me, Kovan Topsi, Sawa maybe chewed the young Jebala? In the carriage over us and a server congregation. Soba Magona, and the mission Dalia, those again, Dimandi Mambu Yungura, Cocoa, Susuna, Dromadu, Susun Devanation. Mendoza dan deba gekjebale chunga yimi de se ni ne sigdo susun deba na shin ma dro da susun deba le deba shin ge da ani chaba da du ka sayum la so neba mambu yo yo da me de me mai mambu o tidi za ko so to ba ko re chara pa neba ma je na chaba na chu neba shin ge chun seba kom gur ma seba ma go na kera ge de ka sore kyo chima long ju chimba ta wala tene jebu yong ju te da Suba Kasere, Chawabambala Tene Kyo, Sambutoga and the Yontoguma, say. Suba the Bekachambara. Those in dream and do Namsanga to Conducera. The Condusena, Susanam do Tengedelia, Chamba the Choyo Mare. To me, Mana, some Yomako, Nabu Karila Gunas and Tugachichuna Samgira, or the Suba Gashambara, Sierra. Suba Magunani Condu, any Ramaki, Shamiki. Any day Chimbata Garsera, the Chawapang between the Yomaris, the Zati, those the dream and teaching to the same thoughts the Taboku Yara. Sense of what Chaw Sigdo, all those younger are quade, those younger some Seba Comshaneke Omara. Suba Magum teaches some sudden some to Ramiki Shamiki Chara Condusena. Tambu Condu Nimikari, Tambu Sosu Mejibasu, and me robots to Mejibasu at the Dora. Timado ke Conduleva. In the Kesajum Gra. or Sashange, Gawayabu in the Mitchell Condo Yabutana, Nemara Yakucha, Tikanga Melchagre, Cutting Mega Chagra. Condo Mambusena and Chimba Sudimula Soba Mambuson at the Kazet in Yamduyora, Dribuki and Mabsugura, or the Deco. Seba communication, but is it is some good teaching.
So here, generosity is an important practice, and this can take many different forms. Like, for example, if one is a doctor, doctors are like giving life. They are giving health to people through the kind of work that they do. And so it's really important to have a good conditions in the future, that first we practice things like generosity in the various different ways that we can, and ensure that it ripens in a good situation by having ethical conduct as well, by having the sort of ethics that will ensure all of that ripens in a good rebirth. And then really we need patience as well. In the six perfections, the first three of these, generosity, ethics, and patience. Patience in order to have a good rebirth. Really, we need to practice patience. If we don't have patience, I mean, we will encounter things that are not agreeable to us, that don't seem right, something that maybe is a little bit wrong to us. And we will encounter things, various types of harm from human and non-human forces. I mean, we encounter things like natural disasters, rain and earthquakes and so forth. And if we immediately get angry, we can't sort of bear with whatever is happening, then we make ourselves and those around us miserable. And not only that, we are creating negative karma through the kinds of thoughts that arise. I mean, particularly like if someone does something we don't like and we get angry immediately, we don't watch what we say. We're suddenly doing all of this negative karma that we are trying to avoid. And so we need a sort of toughness. So our mind needs to be able to handle what comes, recognizing that, well, this is samsara. If I get angry, if I get upset at every little thing that doesn't go quite my way, not only do I make myself upset, I make others around me upset, but it also destroys all of those virtues that I have taken the time to accumulate. So really, we need to have the sort of practice of patience in order to be able to preserve the kinds of virtues that we have made an effort to accumulate.
Oh, yeah, done the matter. Oh, the Casura. Tatun that Seba committee. Some madu education, but it was. Telia Chujuna Sungudua, Carsara. Medu Chetan the way Kisabulation, imitate in a Shidate the Tanjum Sungudua. Or the imitate any condu Jebe Jude Sierra. Then Damida Yonia Yorton, Migichi, Michonem Damida, Jungshi, Jonga Lunda, Jetabada, Chabada, Tindewage, Joewage, Sosutemate Yonia Yorba. Or Tinde Karichuma in a those same trouble good. 동일의 좀 센스 버죠. 또 센트 버죠. 우리 서트 버죠. 우리 착보 거です. 또 아주 만들다 남사 섬교 미기버서나 아니 배 섬대 고급 연구 말을 쳐라. 단지 만들 마부 연구라. 아니 가슴 투제 되고라. 자고 충주내야 서바지나 되게 연구를 된다 연구를 삼 서바 공차나. 아니 님도 체르 현재 바로 지금 면도가 전부 된데 중에 서트 교라. 아다 중사르선. 먼저 충주나 송반하신 두고 시부지 총소나 다양자 소주 자야 연나네 심대 마지 소주 자고 송으로 소주 개 매워지네 총사를 다 심대시네 야 동해강 동해라 잘라르지 라스는 용해 매워지나 다들 라스는 dim마송 삼대네 소수 동해를 라고디 토라지 시티가데 동해 소수 동어라 어딘데 소라체 그도이나 찔러 밥냐 다게네 심대 rab당 녀메샤세 또지 dim마디 주나 심당모 시키바시 대야데 뇨죠 말했습니다. 케베 동에 주나니까서 야들이 돈다고 심데 또지 담벤데 dim마디 용야 요라 고아로와 미르와 고 강가 산제도 장주선 번님도 대교 말아 공중하게 자동아 지지 그 생기자를 마도 나게 계신분에 계시 생겼어요 말아 산지 장주선 번나시요 말아 진짜면데 용구라 롱주기 전에 담다 연구를 중에서는 담다 연구라 어때서 서치 그러잖아. 근데 남산섬 초기와 말에 가르랍고 그래서는 최나래 칠로가 또좀 담다 중에 남산 가쳐줘 두 쳐줘도 매서 거라. 소소 삼루다는 소소 삼루 소소바 왕주 토바치고야라. 나란주 단다 가르 되어서나 소소 셈게 왕도다. 셈베 차다한다 고도다 가제 타도 왕도다 아니 거 가르제네 딜두거라. 티파 뇨르다 했던달이야. 셈게 삼바나 어디 말에 대하고 말 디마가 뭐 디디가 거시 소소 셈리오 왕주치 했던다 티치오라. 어디 인도상고 셈리아 주주다 했던달이온 거라. 그래서 셈게 삼루다제 콘도완도 마도 세바 코메데 뜻은 예리 삼루다게네 기교인 삼루다나 야보데 되어라 어디랭에 콘도들에 제소한지 마소아 삼베나 뇨르래 콘도도 소선 제게르 진삼 겐제르 진삼 코서 어제 바지 부체네 아니 콘도 사르사르다 제고베 나와셔라 콘도도 교인 디마소아 삼나 니코 뇨르 다치사라 어디 인도 가서라 된다 지금 밖에 다그네 가야이니 좀 샤서라 심도도 중앙이나 되게 심 추겨 말아 이 메도가 중소는 콘도 연구를 콘도 전에는 경강가 연구를 저 심하도 버셔 야보지 템버지 때토에데 개셔부래 송고도 야 어디지라 된데 그래
So, not allowing our minds to get upset is really important. We need to have this kind of toughness of mind, the ability to bear with. I mean, there are all kinds of external forces, whether it is like the external elements or afflictions, other beings. As the master Shantideva has said, come what may, no matter what occurs, whatever sort of harm comes to me or whatever difficulties I encounter. May I not allow my mind to get upset. May I allow nothing to sort of disturb my mental peace. So really, it's important that we gain this ability to like bear with, to withstand those sorts of difficulties that we encounter. This is samsara. There will be things that we don't like or things that don't agree with us. But if we allow ourselves to get upset by that, then this is just increasing our suffering. So really, this mental disturbance or this kind of mental unhappiness is what leads to full-blown anger and all of the faults that come with that. And so again, as Shantideva has said, if we learn to habituate ourselves to what is difficult, we find that our fortitude, our ability to put up with, to bear with various things will increase more and more. And really, we need to take Shantideva's advice where he says that if something is fixable, then don't worry about it. Just fix it. Just resolve the situation. And if something is beyond fixing, then there's no need to worry about it. Worrying about it is just adding on to our suffering. Like if we have lost something, for us to think like, oh, I lost this thing, it's not helping us get it back. And it's certainly just adding to our suffering. And we have to recognize that we are among other ordinary beings. We are not among bodhisattvas here. So it's not as though everyone is only thinking about others' things and thoughts and, oh, may they be happy and have that kind of love and compassion for everyone. We are amidst all of these ordinary beings who are under the control of their various afflictions, their attachment and their hatred and their jealousy and their anger. And so we shouldn't be so sort of susceptible, ready to react to external conditions, not so ready to be excited or joyful about something, or despondent on the other hand. So really, we need to recognize the faults of our anger, of that mental unhappiness even, and recognize that it is not serving us. We need to bring our mind under our control rather than follow under the control of our various afflictions. So really, if we begin to take account of what is happening in our mind, we see when we get angry and so forth, then we will reduce those faults. And this involves actually seeing them as faults. I mean, some people, when they get angry, they might think that they're being very sort of impressive, that they're very showing off to others almost, and they think that it's a good thing. But we should recognize when we are at fault. And once we begin to take stock of those things within our own mind, we are better able to reduce them. So here, having the kind of patience, the ability to bear with whatever comes our way is a very important component of practice.
Oh yeah. Oh, tatunda ka sore. Ngara tanda milu toba de pe sa chimbo da ke chimbo ra. Shibuji ishin no mabule gatan bunga le la wa chi nye bare sam. Ti tanda me ba chen de chikbu tanda ya so much of a chair. Shanla to Jambe, Niji, Seve Shison, the Shanla Toa Bombate. And the other trend to the Jambe Shison, Shanla Pemba Trubatini, Kakini, Roa. And Simja Tamjegi, don't troop Tunge, Simja Tamjegi Tunge Pomata, the other Demba Shaba, Tartu Bato Chetunge, Kunse, Yunde Kundenji, Tapdan Shiram Niga, Sangbotan Shen Niga Tarshimbe, Kansachin Juro Chasam. 대체도 아니 최년기 some 그노 세tam December shoes and
So, really, essentially, right now, we have this very precious life, this rebirth that is more precious than a wish fulfilling jewel, than even tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of these wish fulfilling jewels. And really, holding as a foundation this kind of attitude that recognizes the sentience, the feeling of others, and wishes for them to be free from suffering and wants for them to have happiness. This foundation of love and compassion, and expanding that further and further. We wish to take that to its ultimate culmination. And so here, thinking that I'm going to listen to these teachings for the sake of being able to become such a being who has developed all good qualities and eliminated all faults, has taken their sort of method and wisdom to their highest, who has all of the abilities to be of benefit for other sentient beings. In order to attain such a state, I am going to listen to the Dharma. We should set such a motivation.
Oh yeah, 당한 저 셰게 추데 디레아 가서래. 우마든지 청아티래. 우마든지 청아세. 되네 가서래. 된 제바보데 곰불루줍라. 된 곰불루줍데 산제 좀 된데게 랑가르시벤 돌아서와 도망부나라 롱된 용구도와. 마음바나 산제 냥엘인 데서베 체리아. 아니 결론반데 생게치 용구데스. 아니 되게 루줍네 루이도 체네. 맹들라네 루줍시 맹다그레스. 결론반데시다 데밀루시베. 아니 되게 여다 매배 초지고 실제적인 도대로와 실업지 바로도 침배 도대 용수 작반듯이 오마로 어때니 산제 고물로도게 실제적인 도 몸다 니티게 동바도 그 실업지 바로도 침바 소매 담에 등담바치지 매송게티 도대 어때니 가서래 송배 동반이게 된다대 리베고네 파트웨트다나 오모자와시르블라 소바 오마르소 둘라 소바 tin데 땡주 셴부 마부용도와 디나네 오마른제 저와디 치그레데와와 소디 자와시르브티레데와레 실진긴 도도스나 템베 동반예세야데 아니 더라 네방오네데 임바 산제 공반임부티 쪽비와라 소체체 딜레디 공 우르소 주세 르송아셰셰도와 디나네 오마 른제 저와디 셰야데레 딘제바부 루두셰 아니 대가수레 셰사데 수레스나 아니 또 산제 좀 되게 친다 개부 대주 상부생게도와 딜레셰버스 카셰스네 디 개부 대주 상부 말이야 개부 찔레셰버레스 근데셰도 다든다 개부를 송샹게 랍세치레스 야 디치션서
So here, as far as the Dharma that is to be explained, we are going to be talking about the precious Garland for the middle way. The author is Nagarjuna, and so here Nagarjuna is someone who was prophesied by the Buddha in various sutras, talking about how after he had passed away, sometime after, there will be a monk who is named Naga who will actually go to these Naga lands and explicate the meaning of emptiness, of the meaning of the Perfection of Wisdom sutras. We have the teachings of the 100,000 line Perfection of Wisdom and the 25,000 and so forth. They were not widely disseminated during the time of the Buddha. They were not widely taught. And so Nagarjuna then establishes through reasonings establishes the meaning as it was taught in those sutras through reasonings, particularly in his either 5 or 6 treatises that deal with reasonings. And so here, this text of the precious Garland of the Middle Way is advice, is teaching that was given to particularly a king named Dechen Sangpo. There is some sort of debate about who was the actual recipient, intended recipient of this, but this was advice that was given for a king.
Oh yeah. Oh, this is that. Reso true the main the love channel. Oh, tini. So the ne kare so zawa shirap che. Ni riba chukchu ba che. Ni tongni tunju ba che che. Ro. Tini. Oh, kasi. Renje chungwa la so ba. Oh, te che che. Rikso true yung kutwa. Tina ne tanda nga zo. Zawa shirap di. So che che. Shirjin ki dewe kapsu. Tongba ni sungwe te. Chama ribe kwa ne chukutwa. Ni yang de kapsu de. Chiriba ka tandilya. Nangba le yuwa chiriba le yuwa. Di ngōbu nam rāngwīne chūpa re, rāngi ngōyu chūpa re, chēdā kāngsā rāngwīne chūpa re, o tēchū kāngkāla pā, di rāngwīne chūpa te sāngi kōmbu mā re, tabdu mā re, an tē tīngi sā tsāwa shirab tī sō chūdwa. Tēne chirūpa tēchū kērāng chū nāngba ka chēmā tāng, tēne tēchū kāngkā yuwa mā re sikidwa se, tēne tēndē kōni yā chū kiān shī wīwa rā, tēchū lū pā nē lēng kia yā tēndā lī yā, yāng di sōng shab jī yung rikpa chūshū bāche, tōngi tēnchū bāche, shimu nam tāsiyā che, rwa, o tē sum che. Tēne tē che liya tānta tā tē tēnchū ma tō, rikpa tō kēchū che, tē yin rikpa che shana, yā tēnchū re. O tē che ne tā rikpa che re, tānta tsō tē, tē tōngpa nye she kiyo rā, ngōntō lā tā, tāmbi wō le yung kura, o yā, tēne, 먼저 하다 미 고방 줍시다. 근데 내래 타르바다 줍시 어디디 쪼시도 어머런지 정확합. 디시에 인소야 딜람니.
So here, then, when it comes to this text, The Precious Garland of Advice for the Middle Way, and this is sometimes included, like there are collections of texts of Nagarjuna's, and sometimes it is included within the 6 collections on reasonings. And here, the main of those is Nagarjuna's root verses on the Middle Way. And this is then supplemented by various other texts, including the 60 stanzas, as well as the 70 stanzas that are kind of responses to those who would refute. So he largely lays out the kind of system of a lack of inherent existence or existence from its own side, according to the root verses on the Middle Way, and then the kind of refutations that were presented by those non-Buddhists he addresses in his later, some of the later texts on the 6 collections of reasoning, including the 70 verses and so forth, as well as something that's sometimes translated as finely woven. And so here, this text of the Precious Garland could fit into either. It gives reasonings that establish that kind of emptiness of the middle way, as well as giving clear advice for how to attain higher status, good rebirth as well. So it has both of those.
Oh yeah, that tenje de chende, the ma loves chende digura. Gar sigura. Oh, then Raja sigura jaga kechera. Raja pari indi sindedo jagar ke do, ani gar sigdo sena. Oh Raja, ani kare Raja pari katha se sera. Radna wali se. Peke do ne tam si kase Rinpoche tam se. Digdo. Tam Rinpoche changwa se. Mala se de changwa le sigora. Oh, digdo. Pari katha sigdo. Rinpoche Raja pari katha. Radna wali se. Radna se Rinpoche wali se ne. Kase changwa de le sigdo. Rinpoche changwa se. Oh, di labs che. Temde che.
So here we'll do the title of this text, and just for a good kind of dependent origination, auspicious connection, to say it first in the Indian language. So in Sanskrit, the title is Raja Parikarta Ratnamala, or Mali, Mala here I think is better. And then when that is translated into Tibetan, it's Gyalbo La Damje Dam Da Wei Rinpoche Trengwa. And so here then going to English, it is in the English order, we would have to say sort of a garland of jewels of advice for a king, really going in the opposite direction. So Raja is king, and then Parikarta is advice, and then Ratnamala is a mala, a string of jewels. And so just giving that for a kind of auspicious connection.
뭐야? 당한 저 최주대 발라셔네라 최주대.
Mhm.
네바 군래 남주의 진식도 네바 군래 남주신. 연대 군지 gem바보스. 심지어 군지 년식부 탐재견을 사서로서 어디 최주래도 와. 근데 내가 최주대게 연대 가르치고도서는 네바 군래 남주의 진식도 녀몽바다 가사게 다도지 바다 최지 다도지 바라 소배 녀몽바다 아세. 요안에 공동가 결을 소바 강가 연구다 녀몽바다 아세. 아니 시제 드바스도 대박사 가사 당제다 최기 다도지 바데 녀모셔라 대 박사다 제바 박사게 왕게 템바주바 나와라 소바 어디서 박사도라 시티유스기도 시제 드바스 니바군래 남주시에서 니바데 께 가사게 다도 좀발라 소바 녀모바다 녀모바에 샤베 바샤 시디 바샤다 제바 그 빵바서 빵바 핀저시기도 니바군래 남주시에서 야
Mm. So then, turning to the first verse, which is really praise, an expression of homage. I bow to the omniscient one who is utterly free of all faults and adorned with all good qualities, the sole friend of all sentient beings. So here the order is going to be a little bit different in the English, but starting with the second line, one who is utterly free of all faults. Here, this is referring to the fact that a Buddha is free from the grasping at a self of persons as well as the grasping at a self of phenomena, free of all afflictive obscurations as well as knowledge obscurations, the kind of imprints that are left over that give rise to that appearance of true existence. So this is expressing the qualities of abandonment or relinquishment, having gotten rid of all of those kinds of obscurations, both afflictive and to knowledge. This is one who is utterly free of all faults.
뭐야 다 연대 군지 gem바보세데 똑배 연대시기도 똑배 연대 김배 연대 지다와다 진이발라 소바 시제 내류 말루바 김바스네 되거든 야 랑도르기네 말루바 김배 넘버 3제 김배 이시데스 똑배 연대데 시기도 야
Mm. And then the line, and adorned with all good qualities, is referring to the qualities of realizations, the qualities of realizations in the sense of, or qualities of a Buddha's knowledge in knowing the mode of existence of phenomena as well as their varieties, and knowing the points of what is to be adopted and what is to be abandoned, having all knowledge. So adorned with all good qualities refers to the realizations.
뭐야 이제 담보되게 엉바 편조데 시기도 니바군래 남주시에서도 녀모보다 시제 집어 말루바 빵바 표선 저거데 되지 니바되게 네 시자 지다와다 진입에 시제 내주 지마치신 캠밤 란도르기 내 지마치신 캠베 똑바 편조데 시기도 빵도지 똑베 연대 표선 저거데 시기도 딜리 딩이부터야 랑데 편조지 구세라 랑도지 구세라 셰바부 랑이 돈다 껴군세 연대 탐제 nemba시고라 소소 딘리 차고라 담보 텔 랑데지 구시도 랑데 빵바 편조다 또바 편조 셰라 디지람네야
Mm. So here, the first and second line then in the Tibetan, the first line, our second line, is really referring to the excellent abandonments in the sense that Buddha has abandoned all of those afflictive obscurations as well as the obscurations to omniscience, all of the imprints of those, and as well says in the third line or the second line in the Tibetan, and adorned with all good qualities refers to that those those realizations, the excellent realizations and excellent knowledge, knowing phenomena exactly as they are in all of their varieties, and having the knowledge of what is to be abandoned and what is to be adopted exactly as it is. So here, these really, the excellent abandonments and excellent realizations are what constitute the body that one has achieved for one's own aim, one's own excellence. Attaining that completely is what then allows one to attain the body that works for the benefit of others.
Yes. Samje kunje nye che bo se de. Samje kunje nye che bo se. Samje tamje ane kya malu bale towa lang go ba ba. Yende malu bale ya to ba je ba. O tende de samje kunje nye ro chou do jo nye che bo. Nye danda me ba che bo te ra tar simbe che bo te ra se. Samje kunje nye che bo se de pang do je yende nye dan den be. Tu je la che ten ne. Nibale drese yende tamje ya tobar zengengi sanje chomden de se sugu di shegdo shendu sugu se ngaranzo la ngo su tunda zene chu songe ge sugu di shegwara rangde pangdo ji rangde pangdo gi kunyi se ra shendu sugu se pangdo ji kunyi buti so kamsa sheba budile sanguro rangle yende de sanguro rangi yende pangba to tokpa ni de nganzo tuje je ke yo maro 대답이 방도지 연대니던 대배 강사 수구 네 심정이야 최송 제토의 신경들이 수구 현대 수구식도 됐던 게 와라 탐제 김배 무슨 이바고는 믿었기면 심정 끊기 내지고 탐제 견라 차서로스 탐제 힘버 산제 좀 된들 차서로스 예전다 란드 또바 편조 로 방바 편조 란드 꾸니체 아니 현대 수구 편조 써봐 대답이 랑규리아 방도지인데 tarshimangane rangi nyamsolambe chete nyamyugo tonne shala temba jengege nyengi chodo jurwa chigbu sanje chomdentil chasalo shegdo ya
So here, this line then that says the sole friend of all sentient beings is referring to the form body, the kind of way in which one is then able to help other sentient beings. So one who has attained the qualities of excellent realizations and excellent abandonments within their own continuum, then acting, teaching those to others, is like the soul, the unrivaled, the highest and superior friend of other sentient beings. And this is referring to that form body of a Buddha that comes about when you have complete within your own continuum the perfect realizations and perfect abandonments, then to be able to demonstrate this to others, to be able to teach to them what is to be adopted and what is to be abandoned, one needs to have that kind of form body. So on the basis of having those excellent abandonments and realizations within one's own continuum, then this is something that allows you to proceed to teach that to others through the arising of this form body. So here it says then, I bow to the omniscient one, that's the line that comes last, who has those kind of excellencies in terms of having completely perfected the abandonments and realizations within their own continuum, and then are able to teach those to others. Thus they are like their sole friend of all sentient beings.
오야 다디 첼이야 셰바 담저데레도 땡주디 쌈기인세 담저베 슈데레도라 텔카스도 개부 쿄라 쿄 줍처 치도 개베 쿄셰데세 개부 쿄라 세우라 개부 단다 롱버게네 롱버게 롱버다 디베 미마 저 참말이야 원주 쟁개게로 네 뽑아단 댕개게 개부 쿄세르시라 시지쟁기 개부 쿄세르시 개부 쿄라 최 줍치르세 최 먼저 사담이 고바 톱지기 최다 내래 타르바다 탐제케 뭐 줍지기 최니데 두버샤베 최도 셔라 개부 쿄라 최 줍치르 직도 개외 최셰데세 되네 타치도 개외 타치도 교 넘버 탐제도 토마르케와 바도케와 타마르케 뭐 껴도 치에메게들 타치도 개와 렉바시고라 개와데 렉바시고라 네 직도 개외 최셰데세 개부 쿄라리아 근데 뭐도 사다 미 고바 줍지기 쳐다 내래 타르와다 탐제 침바 줍지기 쳐대 결혼을 시기 인식거라 저는 저 줍지 지도 계획 최시에 대해서 셰바 담자 와서 다 셰바 담자 와되 가르셔 것은 거서 최시식도 않는데 그발라 속바 최시 대세고도 근데 저제대 가르서는 뭐도 당일에 준대대 셰바셰거라 뭐도 라메 고바 도시기 주가래서 아니 내래 다르바도 삼제kim 뭐 톱세 교가래서 뭐도 다 내래게 준대니부터 니 저자라와 저자죠 대 저자대 셰발라 때니 두자되게 아니 저자대 고아대 뭐도 교테레 내래 교테레 다대 뭐도 토발라 대체오래 내래 토발라 대다 될로 그래서 하고 해줘라 될로 거바식도 셰베 거바더라
Mm.
그 셰는 버저대 하고 해야 돼 거바로 남유까지 계셔야 돼 되라 거바세 저자 거바 닝구스데 어디 하고 왔을 때는 주바 냠리시네 아니 더도네 내래 타르투베 거바 타르바 탐제심베 거바 토바데 닝구들아 거바 타르두들에 내가 이 거바데 시아바데 하고 했지 타르두지 거바데네 tellatene lamune 타바 탐제심베 토바데 닝구스그라 그자 거바 닝구세 네 델바스그라 가르스네 최셰발라테네 퍼조데고 고알라테네 아니 냠솔라네 똑베 연데 라줄레케 어텐데 저자 거바 닝구스 숨요라 다 닝구디 거바 타도 거바데 쪼발라 최데 하고네 냠솔라버들 라레라 최데 냠솔라네 하고데 셰발라 라레라 때라 치마치마 ngamangamal 라레바스네다 ngamanga마 셰발라 때네 고알라 때네 냠솔라 뭐 때네 닝구투스 야두스 셴네 때레 드라와시기도 어디 네 최시디 셰거라 뜻줄라나
No.
결례 최도지 지도 계획 최시에 대해서 셰바 담자
So then next, we turn to the pledge to explain or compose this text, which comes in verse 2, where it says, O king, I will explain to you the completely virtuous Dharma so that you may accomplish it. And then for the Dharma will be accomplished when it is explained to the vessel of true Dharma. So here, beginning with the first half of that verse, it says, O king. So he's calling again to the king, this person who has authority over this region. We don't know exactly what that might have looked like at that time, but has this kind of power and authority over a certain area. And he says, I will explain to you the completely virtuous Dharma so that you may accomplish it. So here the Dharma is referring to particularly a higher status, gaining rebirth as a human or a god, or the definite goodness of liberation and the state of omniscience. And so really, this is something that is completely virtuous in that it is virtuous at all times. The kind of virtue of the Dharma is something, as I have said, is virtuous like now, in the present, in the future. It brings about those good sorts of results. And so this completely virtuous Dharma, again, this pledge to compose is something that is traditionally made at the beginning of a text. And it is really in order to elucidate 4 particular things that are important for a treatise. And the first is the topic, the purpose, the sort of final ultimate purpose, and then what are the connections between those. So here, the sort of topic is the dharmas that lead to higher status and definite goodness. That is the subject matter of this text. And the purpose of this is then to gain knowledge of that explanation, to understand what are the kinds of causes that lead to higher status, what is it that leads to definite goodness. And in dependence upon that knowledge, that understanding of the subject matter, then one can actually achieve that. So the ultimate purpose is attaining that state of omniscience, really, and independence upon that knowledge of the Dharma, of those causes, one can achieve that. So here, the kind of connections are established, and when we see that independence upon the topic, then we can have knowledge of that. The knowledge of that topic that comes about through one's own experience is then able to bring about the ultimate purpose. So there is a connection between the ultimate purpose and the kind of temporary purpose, the earlier being the source for the latter.
yeah 다들 최대는 셰네 개불이야. 셰고에 주제가래 개불 가르치는 셰브레스 티시거라. 개불 가르치는 셰브레스나. 담배 최제 너라네 최주 주디 강실라세. 노. 담바스도 기부 담바는 비때 배치되라 담배 최시거라. 기부 강사 개발자 대족에 냠솔라에서도 담배 최 기부 담배 때 배치되면 담배 최 담배 최지 너라네 담배 최지 너들이야 최셰바이나 뉴런기 투체들 최셰바이나 수라 네티 최데 셰발라 때네 드부딘 두번 요그레서 뭔데 군디디르다스 타베 군디디르다스 셰발라 때네 그 냠솔라네네 뭔데 고만 두토 그래 닐레 고만 두토 그래 시거라 되네 최드 요데 강실라스 때 손자 최셰베 뉴런 강실이야 최데 셰네 최데 데부디 냠솔라네 두토 그래세 대선자 개보대야 최셰베 뉴런기 되자 선자 네 개보대야 최셰베 인속거라 되잖아.
So then why is this being explained to a king? And so here it says in the second half of the second verse, for the Dharma will be accomplished when it is explained to a vessel of the true Dharma. So here the order comes opposite in the Tibetan, but for a vessel of the true Dharma, someone who is a suitable vessel for this is someone who, in dependence upon knowledge, can then properly accomplish the causes that will lead to the results one wants. So here, someone who is a fit vessel of the true Dharma is one that will accomplish it when it is explained. And so, based upon the knowledge of what it is that will lead to a higher status and what it is that will lead to definite goodness, the king is someone who is a proper vessel, proper recipient for the Dharma.
나나 다들다 다들 가르쳐도서나 어디 봐 담봉은 바로 토에 최세라 진행해 봐 레중 와세 아니 강실은 바로 토톰네 림딩해 봐 레반 중세라 어디도 네 가르쳐 그랬으나 슈니에게 구름디 셰고도 와 구름디 당보대 가르쳐 그래서 당봉은 바로 토 최세 문도세 member to us the nyawa yeda tonto tola mabu member terwa kyo member wa ngesong ki kyo asigdo sada me ko ba tele member to wa tenro sigra dewa ge nyongge ge dewa yebe te so ngesong do tongge nyongge ma charisira tambu member to we chese ane shene sura ti le jumde le so ba kunjo song le jamdu le so ba ngomba ngondo tobje ki tawu tene 델레야 다 추추두치 셰도 남징아 좀 메게와 추바 개와 추투베테라 어디 뭐바 토베 추데 추추두도 셰네 시고라 아니 때야 보치 레 좀들레 소바 메게와 바 개와 추 델레 렌델레야 이치기 때바 야 보치 니 소나 시고라 니 치소네 네바 레바 중구데세 너도 추데 야 보치 투나 니 개와네 개와 뭐도 개와 름바 신도 라네 데이터를 깔래 겹게는 내려도 두투그레스 거라 담보 얼랭엘 응어도 쳐도 토바차고레스 데 아버지 토스나네 데이터를 냠소나 볼 때네 내려 타고 탐제 김백고만 두투그레스 거라 진행해 봐 레중 와세 간실 응어버 토톰네 림디 레버 용 내려도 토그레스 거라 주제 관계체나 담보 응어버 응어도 고반데 토고레스 담봉원도 고반 톱지기 추 주주디 셰고레세 대신에 대 냠솔라네 응원도 고반 림지 교환에 교환원도 고반도 톱그레스 대 톱소나네 대땡이야 타바 톱지기 동반이를 소바 대주 곰곰곰네 닝엘레게 되고 탐바다 탐제케부 톱톱그레세 어디서도 치능에 봐 렉바 존세 렉존와세 대소다 대세를 응원버터 토톰네 강실 응원버터 토톰네 림딩에 발레바 오세 담봉원데 톱제기 최대셰 주주디셰 데 냠소랑 발레 때네 아니 원데 라다메 코바 방아지 톱 데레 때네 대셰소네 데 개와디 토리 아니 동반이 녜레 타르와 탐제 캠버 톱제기 최도도 냠소랑네 데 톱톱 그래세 어디셔도 야 이게 저래
So then turning to the third verse, and I will just say that this Geshe-la will be following the kind of outline that is in Gyaltsab-je's commentary that comes along with Jeffrey Hopkins' translation. I won't always refer to it, but here we begin then talking about the kind of definite or the order in which we see the teachings on achieving higher status and definite goodness. And so here, the first of this, sorry, this comes then in verse 3. That vessel first practices the dharma of upper rebirth. Afterwards comes the highest good. Because having obtained upper rebirth, one proceeds in stages to the highest good. So here, gaining first a kind of higher rebirth, an upper rebirth. So one who is born as a human and a god, as opposed to in the lower realms, is considered to be an upper rebirth. And that comes about due to having faith in karma, cause and effect, understanding the three jewels and how they are a source of protection and so forth. And when one gains a strong confidence in karma, cause and effect, and on the basis of understanding that and then being given instructions about what it is you should adopt and what you should avoid, then on that basis you can ensure you have an upper rebirth. On that basis then is how one can continue to work toward definite goodness. So here this is explained sort of again. First, one needs to practice, particularly as identified here, 16 dharmas that lead to upper rebirth. And once you have secured that, then on that basis you can develop further. You can strive for definite goodness in dependence upon practicing the various causes, understanding emptiness, and so forth, that will lead to such a definite goodness in the sense of liberation or the state of omniscience.
야, 대 정도. 담봉원바 토에 최대 셰과 가르스나. 담봉원도 최대 셰는 것도 토바 마체나. 공에서 그때 리안이 타르바 탐제체 버트고 말레세. 뒤뒤다 담봉원바 토에 최대 셰는 것도 하다 메고바 토베 탑을 땡고 레스. 베고레스라. 디 톱사소나니 랜데다. 문도 추하다 메고바 탑질이야. 미그와 추 방케와 추투고 발소바야. ngōdu tamchi ki chū chū la soba te zun yamsu la ne lende le ya yishi nye tende chōnsu na ane te che so tōngpa nyi la soba mele tamchi ki chū di shegi na ne kuran dibi ki ma re nge song le chū la lokda yungu ma re se ya uji shen togu de te song doa tende ka se te che so ane lende de la soba yishi tenpa top so na te che le ya ne sabi tō tōngpa nyi di xe ku de se. Ti ma tō tāmbu le de le ichi la soba tenpo ma nyi ne tōngpa nyi xe na, ne che da lo le soba, tinte le chimde lo kuwa te we ta, tōngpa nyi lo kuwa te, tinte taba ya na, ne nge son le jik re se. Ti nga tō wo me ke renji tiong korang ki long chi yung kudwa. Po we tōngpa nyi la soba paa ne kuwa taba ya ne se go ra. Tene marung tangi kyanse nami bani wani te rang marung bele mabu sache kuwa tibchani nyawa la soba tende kya le sa ures o te indi san tambu ko ngunde chö de she ni lende le ishi she ne tene tongba ni she ta tonda tongba ni she de mabu chik de kogu wara tongba ni se de ne so tongba re kansa tongba re me se ki sam kogu ya nyenga chik dwa sa ti ma re se ti memba di tandi seba she gora tambu ngambar tobe chö de le chumde di abu she ne tele ishi ni ba che go re se te gyu mi ni tongba ni she na ne ta che da la melung ge ge chö re so ne tongba ni de she go re so go do ya o te chlam na ndo che ya.
So here, as it says, that vessel first practices the dharma of upper rebirth. Afterwards comes the highest good. So if we don't get this first, if we don't have a life like this, then we are unable to practice the kinds of things that lead to definite goodness. So it is on this basis that we need to make an effort to ensure, at the very least, we have such a rebirth again, have an upper rebirth, rebirth in order to ensure that we can continue to practice and develop. So, first, one has to have a kind of confidence in karma, cause and effect, such that you recognize if you create the proper causes, you will have such a good rebirth, an upper rebirth. And then on that basis, you can turn to explaining emptiness and turn to explaining how one gets out of this cycle of rebirth entirely. However, if you try to explain emptiness without a strong foundation of confidence in karma, cause, and effect, then someone has the danger of misapprehending that, of thinking, well, emptiness means just nothingness. Like I hear there's no eye, no ear, no nose. Oh, that's just there's nothing at all. And then for them, they might fall into this kind of nihilistic extreme where they just do whatever. They don't have a regard for karma, cause, and effect. So these are taught in this order specifically for the purpose of recognizing that emptiness is not a kind of nihilism, but rather we need to have confidence, faith in karma, cause and effect that complements an understanding of emptiness. And it is on the basis of our observance of karma that we can ensure we have the kind of basis for continued practice. So this order is something that is quite important.
Oh yeah, 단디래 가서 담보 telang원도 대화됐어도 원도 써야 돼. telang원도 쓰네 가서서 덴조들에서 그래서 하다 미죠. 그래서 교원 버터 와서. 네바 레바스네 가르스르스네 넬레스네 타르발레스 그래서. 네바 레바스고 가르스네 동엘레 킬렌지 타르소나 조아 메바체 템보체 네소다 네바 레바 태좀 메바 주로 메바 어디 토바소다 넬렉세데 가르스르스네 네바 레바 조아 메바 렌지 톰나 티 타르발레스 그래서. 다티 티토베 조카레스나 테 투반 도르도나세 테 투브지기 주디 촌 도르도베 이네 가레스나 대바 레 좀데레 이시기 대바 미기와 주바 교와 주투바 소바 디네셰베네 추추두레 소바 어 틴데니네 렌데레 대바 군조 숨라 대바레 소바 테조야 워치 계소나 에네 응원도 주베 추디 셴디오라 아니 디젤이야 텔레 이치니에서나니 시럽 동반일 소바 멜리 줍지기 시럽 동반일 셴나 되그데스 시럽보스 어디래 야 디실라나
So here, as far as what we are referring to with upper rebirths, this is really our really happier migrations that are contained within the continuum of humans and gods. And so that's what we are referring to with this upper rebirths. And when it comes to then definite goodness, well, a definite goodness is referring to achieving a state in which there is no sort of doubt, no changing from that state. You have eliminated entirely the causes for renewed rebirth, and thereby there's no sort of falling back, no changing. And in order for those to come about, then the causes that lead to that are particularly the kind of wisdom realizing selflessness that is freed of, has abandoned the cause, the truth of suffering and the truth of the origin of suffering. And it has the nature of being something that is unchanging. It isn't going to be reversible in any way. This, in turn, these both come about really due to a faith in karma, cause and effect, recognizing the truth of that, the validity of that, as well as seeing the values, seeing the good qualities of the three jewels. And then for definite goodness, the additional cause there is the wisdom which realizes emptiness.
뭐야 텐데도 가서라 야 뭐지 뒤에 가서라 동반일에 소바 대졸이야 셰드자 섭소 마셔나 단다디 레중들에 소바 가면에 쳇다로에 디 셰비바 펜션이야 야부지 하고는 펜션부레스 동반일에 따니는 시럽촌나 풍어 유성도 야나 갑깔이 야부지 삼르단 통나네 태좀사와 잠비자 시버르버시버 주세 대pen이다 너무 탐제 좀 벌어 뺏게 첨부를 되어라 너무 참아 짜와대 당신의 연구하라 대인의 약고 다 매수도 매바대 제달을 놓나 기타 다 매발을 건드나 아니 년가 첨부여라 대인데 대수비 세부전에 하고도 당부대 랜드를 이치 당 군조 준비 이치를 소바 대바 땜고 거래스 딩엘을 셔나 마도 동반이엘을 셔나 랜드를 이치지 니보다 규민버치면은 네 동반이 셔나 펜도 매베토래 너저 연구를 스티케스 무시 셔도 되시려나
So, here, this is really important that we explain emptiness in the context of someone who has a kind of stable faith in karma, cause, and effect. This is why this order is emphasized. As it's said in certain places, that a misunderstanding of emptiness is something quite dangerous. That if we explain emptiness to someone who's not ready for it, whose continuum is not ripe, then this can be something that leads to a great loss. It really brings about a great downfall for them in that they can fall into this extreme of nihilism wherein they think that nothing matters. So we have on the one hand that kind of danger of the power of the realization of emptiness, but then also the importance of the realization of emptiness. Like, for example, Aryadeva says in his 400 that even just having doubt about the way that things are, about the way that they appear to us, can tear samsara to shreds, let alone having that full realization of emptiness. And so having that kind of faith even in emptiness is what begins to dismantle samsara entirely, because it is our grasping at true existence, our grasping at a self, that is the source of all of our troubles. So to begin to reverse that, to do something that is in opposition to that, is something very powerful. But here we need to recognize that for those whose continua are not ripened, who don't have the proper grounding in a faith of in karma, cause and effect, then it can be quite dangerous to teach emptiness. But for those who have that sort of stable faith, it is something that is an incredibly powerful kind of teaching.
Oh yeah, that 대전이시를 쳐라 댄스도 대전이시를 쳐라 댄 네 시럽 댄스 양다 그래서 동반이 도배 시럽도 요나니 또 양다부터 더 리토로 대전 내 준비를 써보다 군조 섬을 써봐 대소리야 되니 이시니 대바야 부신이 손나 이렇게 쳐도도 뭐도 라담이 쳐도도 주의를 된 거라 시럽 댄스 양다 그래서 동반이 도배 시럽 된데 근데 양다고 rupa shirab tila tani yanda bato di rikure sera. Tini nane zo karesana, di gyudila zo chichung di shegdo andi zo de. Tini ngade chudu tezu tanga, lende le ichibula soba tanga, dongbani tobe shirab ngele ki gyuni nane kaa zo chibirisana, dongbani toba te zo chibire ese, geshimbure ese ngudwa. Tini du ka sora. 대전 이치를 쳐라 때 대바 야보지 이신이 손에는 쳐도 야보지 툭툭을 tel 때는 시럽 대셔 양다 리스 don담배 양다배 don다 동반이 리토그레스 등이가 나네 소 가르스나 뭐도 규대다 내레기 주 시럽이 그나네 가조어스나 등이 조 시럽 대셔 조디 시럽 드레스 대응원도 대버레스 시럽 동반이 또배 시럽도 조래 대응원도 내 준비를 써봐 땡진 대반이 좋아라 자세 루아 라 이시 니바데 대응원도 도고레스 대시도 안디 규딜을 조병원도 당내래 규니들 조다 배바 개치 좀 간데를 디시도 야
So that was verse 4 that said, here we maintain that upper rebirth is happiness and highest good is liberation. In brief, the method for attaining them is summarized as faith and wisdom. And so then turning to the next verse, verse 5, due to having faith, one relies on the practices. Due to having wisdom, one truly understands. Of these two, wisdom is foremost, but faith must come first. So here it is due to having faith. Once you really see the benefits of these practices that lead to upper rebirth, particularly those 16 dharmas that will lead to that, then out of faith, you rely upon the various practices. Now, when it comes to attaining understanding, when we have wisdom, one truly understands. That is what will actually bring about liberation. So, of these two, then, wisdom is foremost. So, it's really explaining the main causes of these two main goals that we are striving for are faith and wisdom. Really, the 16 dharmas of upper rebirth are being described, as well as this wisdom realizing emptiness. But this faith is what needs to come first. However, wisdom is foremost, wisdom is primary. So, faith is what we need to have in the beginning, but of these two, wisdom is foremost.
Oh, yeah. The Jenny is Chola Tensudo. Deba de Yena, and it on the Casore. I'm going to talk to you to the Tanya, which are two good race you are. The Jenny is Chola Tense. The Carson Deba de Tambuke Chishu de Race. The best our Rabden Deba on to Mother Kibatus to the long time. Dona Deba on to Mother Kibat, and then I'm just so she power chase. Among you when I should put you and I should rest in a situation bush at 대방원도 마다르게 봐도 연대 탐제 손시 뼈르지 야 깨주그ren 때 손깁체 투그레서라 대배 싸워 럽된샤스 대바디 연아니 취지 싸워디 템부치 초고요 레서라 어디 인도 단단들이야 대전이지 취라 댄스도 대전이지 취라 댄스 레주델 소바 테줄레 대바 취레 이시기 대바야 보니서나 아니 원도 주지기 취도 간가 될 때네 오고 레서다 실업된 덴바이나 아니 때 동반이 시에네 코리아 동반이 또 베르바 또 네트 그래서도 어 되게는 좋잖아 동이 또 받을 좋으래서 그렇지 어 되지라면
So, here, as it says again, due to having faith, one relies on the practices. When you see these practices, or you have a kind of confidence that they are causes that will lead to certain results, then you accomplish them. So, due to having faith, one relies on the practices. You engage in the various practices. And it is then due to having wisdom that you have that true understanding. So, again, it's stated that wisdom is foremost, but faith must come first. So there are other passages in which we see the importance of faith. Faith is likened to sort of the mother, what both gives birth to as well as sustains various good qualities. So if we have faith, that's sort of like what will give rise to everything else. It will also sustain and nurture those kinds of qualities. If we see the qualities of something and then give rise to that kind of aspiration, in that way, faith is like the mother. Faith is what helps to protect. And if we have faith, that is what is the sort of stable ground for everything else. If we have faith, that will create a stable root.
Oh yeah. 단데네 말이야. 된다 시다 직바다 몸배 강시 최면다. 와. 베네 대바 챤시차. 아니 거라 네버 레베 네초 인세. 지 시에도 아티 가르시에고르스나. 네 뒤제 된 것도 생이된 데베. 뒤제 야. 베네 가르시도 제 가르시도서는 될이야. 될라. 난데 그 스tambu들. 된다서 듬바다 shedan ka se chakbe wange ene jikbase dunda shedan shedan ge wange jikba ta karsu resena chakbe wange se ro shala so ba te zole chakbe wange simje tu se ge wada shala so ba le chakbe wange ene simje ge so che ba le so ba te zo karesena dumbe wange chulen dawa ya chakbe wange chulen dawa se te res gora ji다 된다세 시다세 kontro왕게 생게 소초발 소버티데나 이 담마데 소초바세 아니 된다 시다 직바다 다 시다게 왕게서 kontro왕게서 뭐라 그 아세바 소초바다부데 가르스나 네 시다게 시다게 왕게 치네 시다게 왕게 출렌다와 되레서라 아니 몸배 가시 최면다세 몸배 가시 최면다세 네 가시라 된다 시다 직바다세 네 몸배 가시 최면다 야 가시가 최 pame tendo ina tikpasana keyo marisero ro chogi tenda ina tikpasana keyo marisero tinde se ina ti mongbe wange indini karso cholen dawa teres cholen dani lega chigora mongbe kanshi chumenda ane kare tene deba chenshi chaso odi deba chenshi de decha da shedan da mongbe wange cholen medawa tezu chune tezu wandu sonde chule dene so chuba ta machimba lo yele so tezu mechiba tesigora tile yani deba chenshi tuche deba chenshi ne telesigre sera dunda shedan jigba da mongbe kanshi chumenda chule medawa de chule dena ni tikbare dora chule medawa de kiware dora tele deba chenshi grese lekbar kato nyebar lekbar nesho yinsa o tezo yabuchi chonsona ane de ngele tarwa ta tamje kembala soba o tezo tobe ne chotu juba yinsa lega karse ne dengi tuje de ngo sobuwa ya.
So then turning to the next verse, again, this is following the kind of outline topics from Gyaltsab commentary to this. So this is identifying then the qualities, the characteristic of who is a suitable recipient for this, who is a suitable disciple for these teachings. So it reads, one who does not neglect the Dharma through attachment, anger, fear, or confusion is known as one with faith, a superior vessel of the highest good. So here, what it is referring to is that one who has faith is someone who does not sort of pass beyond the Dharma or neglect the Dharma out of their own attachment. So say out of attachment to meat and so forth, engaging in killing and thinking like, oh, I can just disregard or neglect the Dharma. Or if through anger, we get angry at someone else and think that like, oh, well, out of my anger, I can destroy my enemy, kill my enemy. That would be neglecting the Dharma out of hatred. Or if one does that out of some kind of fear, like due to the edict of a king or something, and so you give up the Dharma because of your own fear. Or there are some who, out of ignorance, confusion, they think that, well, it's okay if I kill for the sake of, say, my mother and father. Then it's really not a negativity. There's no fault, there's no problem there. But if we transgress the Dharma or neglect the Dharma for any of those reasons, then that would be acting not with faith, would not be a superior kind of vessel. But one who doesn't do so, either through, does not neglect the Dharma through attachment, anger, fear, or confusion, is known as one with faith, a superior vessel of the highest good. So here again, identifying the proper recipient of these teachings.
Oh yeah, this was. Oh, that in the chile medawa. Kondo wando songa tang, ra. Desha wando songa tang. Marikbe timuku wando songa la soba. Tinde kone ne. Mikiwe chute le chulen dene mikiwe le mijupa chi na. Ane ten no dengi tusha re ese. One ko ishiri singe teba chi yoto. O tenga kaso de. Kashe de gebo la soba tinde se de. Lungba ke timbi yongi ya tinde yongi yoto. Kena communism de chine che chok ma re se. Chi che chok ma re se de. Tende che ni a che na ko so le ni ho tende yong go ra ni ma ko che yo me se de yo se ne nam sa ke che tuk tende yong go ra ma bu lo so le tende yong go to wa o te tende le she ne ni che le ka che ma hin ba le chu ko yong go to ke ran do ne sim je se ko de se ka de ne ta ki wa ra no sim je se me se mi se me se ma du me ngara se ne se tende che ko yong go ra o te chu dan de se do ya o this.
So we can transgress the Dharma or neglect it out of our attachment to various things, out of our hatred for others, out of like some kind of ignorance, confusion, or out of fear. Maybe we neglect or abandon the Dharma. So like, for example, In communism, they would say that you can't be Buddhist, or you can't have any kind of religion. So in that context, giving up our religion out of fear, like if we were to be told, well, you're not allowed to believe in that. If you are to, we'll immediately reprimand you, give you some kind of punishment, even take your life, or go out, kill something to show that you don't believe in karma. Instead, someone should really be like, well, take me instead. I'm not going to transgress that kind of dharma. So that's the sort of person who is really a fit vessel for this, is recognizing that they have faith that isn't going to be shaken or neglect the dharma out of any of these reasons.
Oh yeah. 다들 가시도서 가시 르가 이게 레시도 탐제 레버를 용다데서 다다 셴라 펜시나 다도 제바데 개바세 어 다투저 근데 디스코그레스야 되시도 가르쳐 그래서나 가시 르가 이게 관내로 네레 개와다 메케와 룽마테 숨지나네로 아니지 메케와다 룽마테 완도마토와 개와투 버시바다시라 가시 르다 이길에 탐제 레버를 용다데 딱제 셴고 미게와다 롱마들 마다 바케베초를 로에게 탑시치에서 다다 셴라 펜시나 다도 제바 데케바 이로 텐데 방베코네 아니 개알라나 메베 창주도 용선에 계세도 강가라나 메베 창주도 용선에 네 셴데 트베 셴데도 다다 셴니가리안 템베 셰바 이나세 이 랑도 출신도 제바 되네 그래 아니 가르소라서네 개바스 그래 시럽제스 그래서 딜랑도레 출신도 말로게 얘네 리베네 응알레 케바 얘네야 델레야 껍딜레 케바시고 말해세 케바스네 티나시 시에네 티나시 랑도 제나 네 케바레세 시에네야 랑도 마시베네 델레 케바시고 말해세 어디 숨도 안 돼. 가시 르다 이게레 탐제 레버를 용다데 소술령아 요즘 자발에 딱세시네 시고라 에네 다다셔라 롱마테다 미게와도 마타하체 계획sol에 수주로 통계들라서라 다데 고숨지 자와 계획sol에 좋아데 다다 셴라 패션에서 어떻게 심제 탐제가 되어줘야 다다 셴이가라 템바데 쉐바이나 디나 신냠리 쉐바이나 세고라 아니 다도 쉐바데 케바스 어디 뒤제 케바데레세 디마이나 가소라 주변에 케바이나 냠리 마제베나 데 깜딜레 케바스 마레 송구도 야 어디 그래
So then next in verse 7, we have a wise person is one who, having accurately analyzed with all actions of the body, speech, and mind, always acts for the benefit of self and others. So here, someone who, out of knowledge, out of recognizing what is virtuous and non-virtuous, knowing what should be adopted and what should be abandoned, then makes effort to go toward virtuous actions. The person makes an effort to see, based upon their investigation of their body, speech, and mind, trying to make sure that they aren't sort of going astray from the message of the Dharma. So here, in particular, it's not referring to someone, it says a wise person. A wise person in this context is someone who has the kind of knowledge of what to adopt and abandon and acts accordingly, really has examined their own actions and are always trying to do what will be of benefit to themselves and others. And so such a person is a wise or a knowledgeable person. It's not as though, normally we might refer to a scholar as someone who knows the five sciences or is well versed in various topics of knowledge. But in this context, a wise person or a scholar is not just someone who has that kind of knowledge, but rather recognizes what is beneficial and what is harmful in every action and actually takes that up into practice.
오야 다들 망아주 거시도서나 다들 무시 디셰도아 무시 교문에 셰다 봐도 뒤제다 어떻게 캐쳐 되버도 셰라 당원도 톱제기 교문에 대가 셰고요라 뒤가르서르스나 아니가 심쟁이 소 미쳐 봐시고라 당부들 소 제바도 반에 소 미쳐 봐시고라 미쳐 봐다세 내 꾸본다 꾸아 방에 되서 소주가 마신 발렘바 로임 현지 충만 봉하다 현지 충만 로임 제에서 거라 현지 충만 봉하다 아니 소주가 마신 발 로임 제 근데 주인들아 lokpa mawa de se lockdown se lokpa mawa de zhe ba ya de chama se ji ji zhu xin jia ya de chama zhe chama zu ni da se chi zu ma ya de ra ne man zhe se de zhe chama chi zu ngak chel dan da me ge chu ge da wa se u xie de ge de de ne ngak chel si ge do man zhe wa ga se ra man zhe mawa mawa ya da dom se da dan da me ge wa chu de 빵바들이야. 아니 뭔도 라메 거가 접시게 최대 장가 잡도와. 소주바 빵바 마진발은 빵바 로인 빵바세라. 소주바 마진발 로인. 제 참아 치주 낙샬 봉하스. 뒤 독서에 최대 주바세. 소교발을 써봐. 내가 참말은 눈배식 마을을 써봐. 어때서 장가 잡서. 뮤직원도 접시게 최 뮤직 시에도 와. 이 미개와 주빵백개와 주티셔 대간에 두 점이 최주로 되셔야 된다. 야.
So, the what we have done up till now is the sort of introduction, and identifying the proper recipient of this text, and then we turn to the actual text itself, the actual instructions, first for upper rebirth, and this begins in verse 8, and continuing into 9, but beginning with verse 8, it says, refraining from killing and from stealing, not engaging in adultery, restraining from lying, divisive speech, harsh words, and idle talk. So here, really, we turn to the causes of an upper rebirth, and they are abandoning the 10 non-virtues. And so refraining from engaging in killing, and refraining from taking that which doesn't belong to you, engaging in stealing, or in improper sexual conduct, like with someone else's spouse. Also, those kinds of actions of lying, speech that is untrue to others, and as well, divisive speech, the kind of speech that creates dissension, division between others, harsh words that really cause harm to others, as well as idle talk. So these are all of the things that are to be abandoned, and on the other hand, engage in their opposites. Like, for example, the opposite of divisive speech is the kind of speech that brings people together. So here, this is first identifying those things that are to be abandoned.
뭐야? 다 대체리야. 얘기 좀 되도록. 하다스 납심 되도록. 뇌심 매발라서 납심 셔로. 납심 로타세. 얘기 따와 용봉하세 돼. 차다스도 맞으래. 납심대 시행이 나올래 쳐거든. 따라 주나 선가. 차다스. 뇌심대 납심 시행을 내밖에 삼을대로. 납심 로타세. 얘기 따와 용봉하세. 따와 로바 내 좀데 교와 같이 군조 메텔에 소배. 따와 봉하듯이. 되네. 대다 레람 주부 되실 때 레gel람 대다 레람 거주대 대다 주봉한테 된다 매개와 주봉바데 일전에 가부 교회 최초로 도바다네 매개와 주들 제베네네 네 뒤에대 색깔서 매개와는 그거도 대주부대 도바다네 나부 예세 가부 레람 주체 나부 레람 주체 나부 주대판에 개와 주대 주바데 안에 내용도 하다 메고바 접시 교도가라 야
So then we also have the three non-virtues of mind. And here it really just says attachment, but really this is referring to a view of covetousness, wanting those possessions of others, a mind of malice, wanting to cause harm to others, and nihilistic views. So this is sometimes translated as wrong view, the kind of view that says there is no karma, cause and effect, or there are no past and future lives, or the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha don't have the kind of abilities that they have. So those sorts of wrong, particularly nihilistic views, these are the 10 bright paths of action. The 10 gloomy ones are the opposite. So the wrong actions, wrong views, and misled actions are sort of likened to darkness or gloominess. And the 10 bright paths of action or white actions are the opposite of those non-virtues that we are seeking to abandon. So these two, whether we refer to them as white and black or sort of bright and gloomy, are the main paths of action.
Oh, yeah, try this one. 그네. 다 됐다. 미개와 주디 장자르베 뭐도 미개와 주디 빠 개와 주디 주베 식봉도 람베고가 도지 교르베스나 다가 조르 대사 말에 단다 대가리아 요레스 거라 대가레스 음 대코나 세담 시티 말레스 대가리나 창메동한테 지샤고 그래서 창동나 아니 셈투도요라 창메동하시 소아상세 소아상세 아니 소아상부세데 김바이나 제다 상을 써봐 두단도 좀 제해지와라 체제해서라 되는 거거든 상선을 짜야 되라 제다서 총대 장게나 그러려는 제시라 두단도 좀 제해지 요라 그 주시지 신시세 에 거시에 그 충주스 도시야 월치다 자네 그 보단 거라 뉴뉴파 줘야 된다라 내 상도 양에 짜야 될 마비셰도 갖고 있어네 다든다 좋아 lokso de lungbe timda ge wa chong ge du da jala li che da no de te do wa mix che do wa shen da te che jala sa che de ne te li shen da ji le la gong ke bu de te che ne chong ge ba che do wa o te zu li se go da choa sang bu de lokbe choa chong ba de chong ge ba ne ko ra choe don de chong ge yo ra ti be le de timba 지금 매제 밀은 거고 단 텐데션에 티체 되게 말아 로소 되게 알아 랍도 좋아해나 거야 가서 디나리 오데 용기도 칸에 깨져셔야 되듯이 유주로 제제 소화용에 탑시 제고 알아 어떤 데서는 로베 소화시 요란데 가서 처음에 통하대 청동네 샘디 투도 알아 데고 마음 발라고 샘 통계 그리고 텐데 차도 있어라 처음에 통다 식제라 소화 상세 소화 추답 매주 조약을 내가 제대 상부 제고래서 김바이는 그 총ገብ을 내가 가르치거나 정부 템바 제고요 뭐도 팀된 게와다 밀고 오다 대전 되고 말아 소화 내버를 럭소래 되어라 디방고요라 아니 랍도 좋아이나 소화 상세 가르서는 네 원래 그도 남의 체다세 네 루심 라마메바 집에 처음에 동안에 직제로 시스템 투도요라 류데 남주네시 대교 말아 지제 에네 김바 남제 대다 상라 소바 대소리야 아니 유주제바 대세도 대다스는 제야 된다 시고라 상스네 까야 될 시고라 대중 거고 당겨 밀려 아니 랍도 좋아해나 lokbe chowa nga sigra lokbe chowa nga pang batelya chowa sangbo tengo ma de chowa ngebal ten chok ma re sigora chami tongda chowa sangse ane number meche wa se le da nga ge ko ne shen la chowa meche bol so bo te sum de ya te ga ta ge me ke chu pang bo ten do te sum de da gu do ani chok sum re gro wa chami tong wa che chowa sangbo ten ba chudap sangbo che me lok sum me ten ba yo ni lunga ko ne shen la chowa pang ba she di che ne ni chu re do ro chowa pang ba da ni wo de chi lam na
So then if we ask, well, are the 10 virtuous actions sufficient? Well, they need other things as well. So this comes then in the 10th verse where it says, in brief, Dharma consists of not taking intoxicants, maintaining a proper livelihood, abandoning harm, and we'll get to the rest of the verse later. So also, additionally, one needs to give up intoxicants. If one takes things like beer and other intoxicants, it disturbs the mind. It makes it much less clear, and it leads to all kinds of other non-virtues. And then there is acting, maintaining a proper livelihood. So if we act in such a way as to deceive others, I mean, this maybe takes on different forms, but like previously in Tibet, if you were weighing out grain on a scale, to sort of mess with the scale a little bit, or to only put a slightly like less amount. I mean, they'd have a certain area amount that you would cover with grain in order to get the proper amount for bartering or for exchange. To do that in a way where you know that you're like cheating people, to do something in order to get a little bit more, that is acting contrary to the law, that is acting in ways that are deceptive to others. This is not a proper kind of livelihood. Now, when it comes to wrong livelihood, particularly for those that are ordained, this will come below. There are 5 wrong livelihoods, like using flattery and so forth in order to get things that you need. Well, here too, based upon engaging in activities that are contrary to the law, or that are doing things in order to deceive others to make your livelihood, that's not the way in which one should act. In addition to abandoning intoxicants, that when we engage in intoxicants again and again, that becomes the cause for having a very unclear mind in the future. It makes our mind unclear, and then turns to that kind of creates those causes for that again. And so we should have that abandonment of intoxicants, and also an honest livelihood that is carried out in a way that has integrity. And then we should be acting in ways that do not cause harm to others. So here, as it adding those 3 then of refraining from intoxicants, having a proper livelihood, and abandoning harm, then makes 13.
근데 다 로송한테 쉐주샤 뜻이 조소사.
No.
호야 그렇지.
No, no. So we are out of time for today. So I will explain the 5 wrong livelihoods and so forth next time. We'll save that for next time.
Thank you again, Rinpoche, for starting this text with us today. And thank you, Katrina, for your very skillful translations. We hope that anyone online, watching online, will join us again next Monday at 9 a.m. Pacific. And we'll finish with some dedication prayers.
May the spiritual teachers who lead me on the sacred path, and those spiritual friends who practice it, have long life. May I pacify completely all outer and inner hindrances. Grant such inspiration, I pray. May the lives of the venerable spiritual mentors be stable, and their virtuous actions spread in the 10 directions. May the light of love song's teachings dispelling the darkness of the beings in the 3 worlds always increase. Iram Gururana Mandalakam Niryatayami. Due to this merit, may we soon attain the awakened state of Guru Buddha, that we may be able to liberate all sentient beings from their suffering. May the precious Bodhi mind, not yet born, arise and grow. May that born have no decline, but increase forevermore.
뭐야, 뒤에서.
Yeah. Sadawa jema la jeongen la. Tukchena.
뭐야, 뒤에서.
Recording stopped.